I am so sorry. Yikes. Sorry about that. I've been talking to myself for the last, thankfully, it was just a minute. All right, I am so sorry. Hello, my name is Nonye, like I was saying earlier, and thank you for letting me know, Jose. Um, I am a licensed agent here in Illinois, as well as a licensed instructor. And so part of what I was saying is that today we're going to be talking about licensing law. And this is part of what you need to know for the examination. We're not going to cover everything about licensing law today just because it's a lot of information, but we will definitely go over it again next week. So I'll just continue with the licensing law next week. All right. If you're here, welcome. Please do give this video a like, right? If it helps you, maybe you're watching later, please give this video a like just to help me grow the channel and also reach more people who are also trying to get their real estate license as you are. All right. So, we're going to go ahead and begin to talk about the real estate licensing laws and some of the things that you need to know. I did a video a couple weeks ago where I talked about the state portion of the exam, and I showed you in the candidate handbook the portions that you need to study. All right. So, the licensing law, definitely you need to know about that. And also, um, agency laws that have to do with Illinois, because there's agency for the entire country, and then there are some laws that are specific to Illinois, right? So you got to know those for the state portion as well. Our brokerage agreements, which is the contract or employment contract we have with our clients, you need to know about those as well. Right? I did a brokerage one a couple weeks ago as well, so you have that. So next week I'll finish up with the licensing law, discipline, like grounds for discipline, those types of things. All right. Now, today we're going to cover the Real Estate License Act. All right. And then who administers the act, so administration of the act, who needs to be licensed, we'll touch on that, and then a couple of other things to note. And then we'll do some sample questions at the end. As I go through, those of you who are live, if you have questions as I'm going through, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you're watching in the future, please let me know if you have questions or how else I can help you as you are trying to get your license. All right. So let's begin. All right. First things first, please know the name of this law, the Real Estate License Act of 2000. This is the law that we practice under. It was last amended. Amending is, I think of the word, we're making a change. You're amending something. So the last change to the law was August of 2019. Okay. So there are a couple of things, and if we hit on any of those today, I'll tell you this was changed in 2019. So they may ask you some of those questions because these are new changes. So they want to know if you're up to date with the new laws. Right. So as we're going through, there are a couple of things today, and I'll just point it out. This was changed in 2019. So you can make a note of that to make sure that you know that as well. All right. So please memorize this law. There are not a lot of laws to, like, the names of the laws to memorize, but this one, 100%. Okay. Real Estate License Act of 2000 as amended in August of 2019. Now, what does this law do? It's a law we practice under, all right? It's also there for the protection of the general public. So if you ever get a question where they're like, what's the purpose of the real estate license laws? Always know it's not to protect the agent, it's to protect the public, right? So essentially wants to make sure that people know that, like, real estate agents essentially are not taking advantage of members of the public. Because as you've gone through the real estate class, you found out from your coursework that there's so many things that you've learned just about the real estate space in general. So people who are not licensed don't have that information. And so these laws protect us from taking advantage of, protect them from us taking advantage of them, essentially. All right. So making sure that we have some level of competence, right? We have to go through this class, pass this exam, and then have professionalism, and also like we're not harming members of the general public. So the public is protected. So that's one thing to really, really know. All of our laws protect the general public. So you're not going to pick an answer that protects the agent. You're looking for what protects the public. Okay. So some of the things, I put them here on the screen so it's easier for you to review as you're going over this. This is the law we practice under. This is where you would find who needs to be licensed, right? Like, so what activities require a license? You find that in the Real Estate Act. How to get a license? You find that in the Real Estate Act as well. What type of licenses do we have? What are the requirements for those licenses? When do we renew our licenses? Those types of things, of course, would, you find that in the law as well. Grounds for discipline. So it tells us what we should be doing. And so if we don't do those things, then we will be disciplined. So when I teach this part of the grounds for discipline part, what I tell my students is know what you're supposed to do. Because then once you know what you're supposed to do, if you get a question that someone is doing something outside of what we're allowed to do, then we know they're violating the law and it's grounds for discipline. Because in your textbook, there's a huge list of things that are grounds for discipline. And I don't want you guys trying to memorize like every single one because there's so much to remember. But if you understand why we have the law, understand what's protected, right? Then you're able to figure out, okay, this thing is not protecting the public, so it's a violation of the law. For example, if I am cheating someone, that's not protecting the public, right? So that's a violation of the law. Okay? Administration of the Act. So the Real Estate License Act is administered through IDFPR, the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. This Illinois department, right, covers a lot of other industries, not just real estate. So doctors, dentists, chiropractors, nurses, accountants, your estheticians, your nail technicians, all these licenses are under IDFPR. And then we have the Division of Real Estate. And under the Division of Real Estate is where we come into play. All right. So IDFPR is responsible for the administration and enforcement of the Real Estate License Act. Okay. And so know what IDFPR is, just that department. And sometimes it's called just the department. So on the exam, if you see the department, they're talking about IDFPR. All right. So what does IDFPR do? How do they administer the act? So they have 4 funds they use to administer the act. First one is the administration fund. So think anything administration, our exams, our licensing fees, like the rules and regulations, that's kind of where it falls under. And then there's an administration and advisory board that's also under IDFPR, which we'll talk about shortly, which we'll talk about soon. So those type of administrative things are under this fund. Okay, so all the money kind of goes there. Then we have a research and education fund. This is where scholarships go. I have a video on scholarships. So if you haven't taken the exam, if you haven't taken the course yet, check out that video to see what scholarships are available. And you might find something that will help you as you prepare to get your real estate license. Then there is the recovery fund. We'll touch on the recovery fund next in the next video. So the recovery fund was set up to compensate members of the general public that have lost money due to actions of licensees. So a real estate licensee or their employee did something and someone in the public lost money. So not like we made them upset, but they lost cash. So they take us to court and then they can apply to this fund to get reimbursed from. Okay. And then finally, the audit fund. The audit fund was added in 2019. There used to be a different fund there, but the audit fund was added in 2019. This is where they conduct, like it says on the screen, audits for special accounts. Special accounts like where we keep earnest money funds, or security deposits as well. Okay, so those types of accounts where we keep clients' money, they audit them just to make sure that people are complying with the law and there is no fraud happening. Okay, so that's part of the audit fund. The two main ones to remember for the exam out of these four, the two main ones are the administration fund and the recovery fund. Those are the two main ones. But the audit fund, it's new, so they may ask you about it. All right. So just think like we're auditing financial records. Okay, we're auditing financial records. So that will help you with the audit fund. Okay. So we have IDFPR and we have these four funds. And then the secretary of IDFPR appoints a real estate coordinator. The real estate coordinator is somewhat like the in between person between us real estate agents and the department. So IDFPR and us. This person is kind of like our representative at IDFPR so that the laws they're making, the laws they're making apply to our industry and they're not just making random laws that don't make any sense, right? So this person is a licensed agent and they've been licensed for a while. They're nominated to the position, so it's not really something you can apply for or campaign for. Excuse me. So you're nominated to the position and you're appointed by the secretary of IDFPR. Once you're appointed, your license becomes inactive because it's difficult for you to be in that position and also helping other people buy and sell real estate. So that person's license becomes inactive for that period of time. Okay? Now, some of their duties are on the screen there, but one of the things I've mentioned already is like bullet point number 2. They are a direct liaison, so they're like the in between person between us and IDFPR. First bullet point, they are the chairperson of the Real Estate Administration and Disciplinary Board. We're going to talk about the disciplinary board next. So this is the board, as it says, their administration and discipline. So enforcing the laws and disciplining people who violate the laws. So the coordinator is a chairperson of this board. And then if there are any if there's anything they need to pass on to us from IDFPR, they will prepare those documents and then make sure that it's distributed to the public. All right? Make sure we're all up to date with the current laws. All right. The disciplinary board. Now, the changes, the number of people and all of that, they made changes in 2019. So please note the new change. Most of the books are correct, but I've come across one book that still has the old information. So it's 15 people, right? 15 total members. 12 of them are licensed, 3 of them are not licensed at all. The 12 that are licensed can be brokers, can be managing brokers, can be, brokers or managing brokers. And then 2 out of the 12 have to be pre-licensed instructors. All right. So they're trying to make it a diverse group, like people with different licenses. And then the 3 that are not licensed will essentially be representing members of the general public. So the 3 that are not licensed shouldn't be married to real estate agents, or they shouldn't be owners of real estate offices. They should be just general members of the public, so that if there are laws to be passed, some sort of administrative work, or if there is discipline that's being passed on to someone, we have a different perspective in the room. Okay? So 15 people, 12 are licensed, 3 are not licensed, or shouldn't be married to anyone who's licensed or have any direct relationship with the real estate industry. Now, out of this 15 people, right, their term is 4 years. So they're there for 4-year term, 4-year term. However, they can only be on the board for a maximum of 10 years. And this again is new as of 2019. It used to be 12 years, but they dropped it down to 10 years. Okay? So 4-year terms, maximum of 10 years. Kind of doesn't make any sense, right? Because it's 4, and then it's a maximum of 10. I did a little digging and I read somewhere that sometimes they may not immediately find a replacement for someone. And so the extra 2 years is kind of for them to find a replacement. So you've done your 2 years and then we're trying to find a replacement and then you can stay there for a little bit longer. And hopefully in 2 years, they found a replacement. Okay. So 4-year terms, maximum of 10 years total. All right, so let's talk about who needs to be licensed. Now, here I give you a couple things, but please look in your book and see all the others because there's a whole list in your book. First, the main thing I want you to understand is the concept. Because, like I said, you're not going to sit there and try to memorize, okay, this person and this and like memorize that list, right? But if you understand who needs to be licensed and what activities you need to be licensed for, if you're given a scenario, you're able to figure out which is correct and which is not correct. So let's start with a definition of who a broker is. A broker is someone who is either an individual or it could be a company. So it lists like all the companies there. And this is I took this definition on the screen is like from the licensing law. So it's probably what you find in your book, right? So an individual or a business entity who is not a leasing agent and who is trying to get paid. So it says they're doing it in person or through media. So you're doing it directly or indirectly through media for someone else. Okay, for someone else. So I'm helping someone else sell their house. I'm helping someone else lease a property. Okay, so for someone else and for compensation. So I can help my cousin find a rental. Like if I'm not licensed, I can help my cousin find a rental for free. I'm just helping my cousin. I don't have to be licensed. But if that cousin is going to pay me because I helped them find a property, then I need to be licensed. Okay? So you're helping someone else for compensation or the expectation of compensation. So back to helping my cousin. Maybe my cousin doesn't pay me, but someone else pays me because I helped my cousin find that place. So I'm expecting to get some sort of compensation. Right? And it says again, either directly or indirectly, performing services for which the license is required. Okay? So on the exam, if they tell you a tenant is helping the landlord buy a house, right? Should this person be licensed? Of course they should be, especially if they're expecting compensation. Right? And also in your books, you talk about like unlicensed assistants. So those unlicensed assistants, right, they should not be paid for these services as well. So working for compensation or the expectation of compensation when it comes to buying, leasing, or exchanging of real estate. All right. So these are some of the things that you may find in your book. So some of these activities, helping somebody else sell, rent, or lease. Okay. Offering to sell, negotiating, listing, or attempting to. Okay. Again, for compensation. For someone else as well, for someone else and for compensation. Now, there are a few things that on this next slide, doing an open house. Okay. Now, on the exam, if someone is, read the question carefully. If someone is not licensed and they're sitting at an open house, once they say the open house is open to the public, a licensed person must be there. Because the question could also say that the open house is only for real estate agents. So if the open house is only for real estate agents, then an unlicensed person can be there, right? So you see the difference. If it's for facing the public, a licensed person must be there. If it's for other real estate agents, then you can have people who are not licensed run that open house. All right, because the agents are there. Okay. Even advertising, okay, that you're in the business of buying, selling, and exchanging or renting real estate, right? You have to be licensed. Okay. So these are just a couple of things that I pulled from your book. So please do go over that list again. But if you go through it, you will see the general theme there is you're helping somebody else buy, sell, or lease. All right. Um, on this slide, where is that one? I thought I had wholesaling on here. Um, so for wholesaling, sorry, I thought I had it on. I probably didn't. All right. So I'll just mention wholesaling briefly. This is where you go to a seller, you ask them to help you tell them that you're going to help them sell their house and get them a certain amount of money. So then once you get that contract with them, then you assign that contract to somebody else. Okay, so you're kind of like an in-between person between the seller and the person who actually buys it. So you get paid from that transaction because you're assigning the contract. Now with wholesaling, and this is new as of 2019, and that's why I thought it was on the slide, so forgive me. So with wholesaling, if you do more than one wholesaling in Illinois in a 12-month period, you must be licensed. Okay. So in Illinois, if you do more than one wholesaling in a 12-month period, you must have your real estate license. All right, because you're getting compensated for helping someone else sell their home, even if you're assigning a contract. Right, and it should be in your book as well. Right, they may not call it wholesaling in your book because they give you the actual definition, but it's the same concept. And if you've watched like some YouTube videos on wholesaling and all of that, you may be familiar with the concept. So just make that note in your book so that it helps you remember, all right, that they need to be licensed. Okay. And it's new as of 2019, so they may ask a question about that. All right, so as we're going along, and if you're on here, like I said earlier, feel free to leave a question that you may have in the comments, and I will be glad to answer. All right. So, just finally, before we move on from who needs to be licensed, this is the same definition from before, but I highlighted for another and for compensation, or with the intention or expectation of receiving compensation. So that's the key phrase in there. You're doing it for someone else and you expect to get paid. Okay. Which then means that if you are selling your own real estate or if you're leasing your own real estate, you are exempt from being licensed. So you don't need a license if you're doing it for yourself. Okay. So on this slide, I talk about exemptions from the rule. So if you're doing it on your own, you don't need to be licensed. If you're doing it for yourself, sorry, you don't need to be licensed. Now, the second one, resident managers, please note this term. A resident manager is, think of someone who lives in the building and is like the building engineer for the owner. So maybe the owner lives across town and then they give someone in the building subsidized rent. And so that person is collecting rents for the landlord. If there are any issues, we call that person to help us fix it. That's an example of a resident manager. The only reason someone can be a resident manager and not be licensed is if they live in the building. So that's why it's a resident manager, meaning they live there and they're managing it for the owner. If they move out, all their responsibilities end. Okay? So I've seen some sample questions where they talk about something like Sally and John are resident managers for Tony, who owns their building. Tony owns 5 other buildings, right? Which ones can they be resident managers for? They can only be resident managers for the building where they live. All right? They can't be resident managers for the other buildings because they can't live in all those buildings at the same time. Right? The owner would have to have other people in all of those buildings. Okay? And then if they move out of this one particular building, then they're no longer resident managers. Okay? All right, so owners or landlords, when it's their own property, resident managers, federal and state officers, as part of their duty, they may be selling land or real estate owned by the government, so they can do that without being licensed. Um, Attorneys, when they are representing their clients, so power of attorney, and then your estate executors as appointed by the court. So if there is an estate, someone passed away and they're, getting rid of their assets, the court will appoint somebody, right, as the estate executor. And so this particular person can then act on behalf of that estate and sell the real estate on their own. Okay. So these are a few exemptions. In some books, I've seen like hotel managers and things like that as also exemptions. So hotel managers, they're leasing the rooms, right? And so they kind of are working for the hotel that owns that building. Or if a property management company owns buildings, their own buildings, they can sell. Or if a business entity owns the building, they can sell their own building without a real estate agent. Okay, and so they'll fall under owners in that situation. All right. Other things to be aware of. Civil penalty. If someone is found to be practicing real estate without a license, all right, IDFPR can bring up a case against them. First offense is seen as a class A misdemeanor, and the second offense is or subsequent offenses will be seen as class 4 felony. All right. And this is as of August 9th of 2019. So this is one of the new additions to the law. First offense, class A misdemeanor. Anything after that is a class 4 felony. And you could also be fined, and it's 25,000 is the maximum they can fine you per offense. So they will review the case and decide how extreme the offense is and decide how much you're going to be fined, but the maximum per offense, not maximum total. Maximum for each thing you do is $25,000. Okay. So that for sure, please note, okay, especially the new edition as of 2019. All right, so our types of licenses, which licenses do we have available here in Illinois? I do have another video where I kind of break them up into more chunks and give you more information about each one, but here I just wanted to give a summary. So the first one, broker license, the one that you're going for right now, you complete the 75 hours, you take the exam, you must have a high school diploma or a GED, must be at least 18 years of age. You can start the course before you turn 18. You could also start the course before you have your high school diploma or GED, but before you take the exam, you must have those things in place because they will ask you. And if you lie, it could be grounds for them not giving you your license at all. Okay. They don't ask you to supply the documents like the high school diploma, but if they ever have to audit you, then you will be disciplined for lying, right? And then also know the renewal dates for each of these licenses. For broker's license, it is April 30th of every even year. So brokers renewed their license in April of this year, and they had to complete 12 continuing education hours. The managing broker license is minimum age is 20 years. Now, how do you remember that? You don't have to remember that it's 20, but if you know that you have to be an adult to get your broker license, and you have to have your broker license for at least two of the last 3 years, so 18, 19, 20. So you have to at least be 20 to get your managing broker license. Okay. So you have to have your managing broker license, sorry, your broker license for at least two of the last 3 years before you can take before you can apply for the license. How many hours do you need? 165 hours. That includes 120 from your broker license and then 45 from a managing broker course. Renewal dates for the license, also April 30th, but of every odd year. All right, so next year it will be managing brokers who are renewing their real estate license. And they have to complete 24 hours. All right, so I have my managing broker license and I have to complete this 24 hours before April. So, yeah, I'll be studying like you guys are studying, but I don't have an exam, so mine is easier. All right, and then the final one, the residential leasing agent license. Now, they just changed the name to residential leasing agent. It used to just be leasing agent. I doubt they'll ask you about it just because that's not the license you're going for. But just have it in the back of your mind that they can only lease residential property. So look at their name, residential leasing agents, and they can only lease residential property. All right. Requirements 18 years of age, high school diploma or GED, and then theirs is only a 15-hour course. And the license is renewed on July 31st of every even year. All right. So if you notice, broker license, leasing license, even years. The managing brokers are the only ones that are odd. Now, a few other things, and we'll talk about them next week as well. But if you're taking notes here, just put on here that for all the licenses, you must also have good moral character, right? So they're going to ask you certain questions about if you have any criminal background. They're going to ask you some of those questions after you complete the exam. And also while you're applying for your license after you pass the exam, they're going to ask you, do you have any history of, this, that, and that? Yes or no. If you say yes, they'll ask you to explain. If you have any documentation, you can upload that to them as well so they can review. Can someone get a license if they have some criminal background? The answer is yes. It just depends on what the offense was. All right. So still submit it and just see what they say. Mostly from what I've heard, if you have some sort of fraud case against you, like you have a history of fraud and, stealing from people, monetary type things, the chances are, maybe it depends on how long ago that was. Those are more of the kind of things they look for, at least from what I've heard, but I don't know. Okay. But just know for the exam, that that's part of like the good moral character that you see in your book. Right. And of course, there is an exam everyone here has to take. So all of these licenses, you need to take an exam. And then after you pass the exam, then you apply for your license under a sponsoring broker. Right? You can't apply without a sponsoring broker. The only time you can is if you are a managing broker and you've created your own business entity. Then, actually, Yeah, you can practice on your own, but then the only thing is I don't know if in the beginning you can apply in your own name, or yeah, you can. You probably should be able to. Sorry, just delete what I just said. I was thinking out loud. So just forget that part. It doesn't apply to you on the exam because you're not getting your managing broker license anyway. All right, so these are the licenses. And then some final things with advertising. With advertising, always advertise under your sponsoring broker's name. So in all of my advertising, I can't just put my name on there. I have to put that I am with my brokerage is EXP Realty. So Onye Ononubu EXP Realty. Um, if anything I'm doing, I can't just put my name alone if it's real estate related, right? If you're advertising a property, you need to tell people where it's like at least the city or the area where it's located. So Chicago, Elmwood Park, whatever it is, Illinois, so people have an idea of where it's located and where we're doing business. Understand the term blind ads. So a blind ad is one that doesn't have those things. One that just is, for example, we buy houses. Okay. And there's no name, there's nothing, there's just a phone number, right? Whoever puts up those signs should not be a real estate agent. Okay. So whoever does those types of signs should not be a real estate agent. Are they? I don't know, but they should not be. Okay. So no blind ads 100%. Always advertise with your sponsoring broker's information. If you don't want to put your personal number on there, put the office number on there. That's okay. All right. And then the next thing on the slide, this is also new as of 2019. The sponsoring broker's name should be either equal in size or larger than your name or a team name. So in all of my advertising, right, if I'm putting their name there, it should be larger than mine or same font size. Mine should not be bigger than their name all the time, right? This is new again as of 2019. So they may ask you about this. So I show you a couple examples here on the screen. The first one, they're both the same size. Second one, ABC Realty is larger. And then the third one, the team name is larger, and that's a violation of the law. Okay? Because again, they don't want the members of the public to be confused. Because if I put XYZ team and make it big, people will think maybe that's a brokerage. Right? We don't want to confuse the general public. Remember, the laws are made to protect the general public. So we need to be clear as to who is in charge here. And technically, the person who's in charge is a sponsoring broker. Right? So we just mentioned teams real quick. So I just wanted to go over what a team is. Now, teams have become very popular. It's taken a while to get popular in the Chicago area. It's been way more popular in other parts of the country. But in the last couple of years, it's grown a lot. So a team is people in the same brokerage, right? So all of you must be working for the same sponsoring broker. And then you guys come together and you do business together. So there's so many ways you can structure it. Maybe there's one team leader and then people underneath them, or it's more like a flat thing where maybe two people are just working together and they help each other out. So maybe someone's out of town, the other person covers, or all the deals are shared because they both work on it together. However you want to do it, as long as you're both in the same office, you have an agreement between yourselves how you're going to share the work, then you can roll as a team. Some people do temporary teams. So maybe for one particular transaction, they work on it together. Once that transaction is over, then they're done and then they go their separate ways. So you can set it up however you want. If you're going to set up one that's going to, go on for a period of time and you want to give yourselves a name and all of that, there are rules as to what you can call yourself. So on the screen there, the team names cannot include certain words. So they can't call themselves a company, realty agency, real estate brokers, any of those things. But you can call yourself, for example, the power team, or yeah, or it could even be like a name. So the Nonye Ononobu team, or like whatever name you want to do, just as long or group. You could use the word group too, since it's not on this list. But why we don't want to call ourselves property or properties or associates is we don't want people to think that we are a brokerage, because the team itself is not a licensed entity. It's just a bunch of licensees who are working together. Okay? So it's just a few licensees who are working together. All right. As part of the team, you can also have, for example, an unlicensed assistant who's there at the, as part of the team. And maybe that person schedules appointments, helps with paperwork, and does all kinds of things there. And then you guys pay them on, outside of the commissions and things like that. So you can set up your teams in different, various other ways and have unlicensed people on the teams as well. Okay. So I'm going to jump into that's all the teaching material that I have for today. And I was going to jump into sample questions. There is a little bit of a lag with the live, I think about 5 seconds or so. I know there are a few of you here right now. What I'm going to do is with the sample question, I'll put it up, I'll read it out, I'll wait a little bit. Let me know in the chat if you're going to participate, so that I know how to wait for your responses with the sample quiz, with the sample questions, and then we'll talk about them together. All right. So let me know in the chat if you're going to participate, if you're here watching live, and then we can go over the sample quizzes together. All right. First question. Sponsored real estate brokers may represent A, B, C, or D. A is any owner who employs them. B is not more than one owner at any time. C, only the sponsoring broker under whom they are licensed. And D, more than one sponsoring broker depending on the parties to the transaction. Okay. Now, on the exam, you're always looking to pick the best answer, right? You're always looking to pick the best answer. So there might be more than one answer that kind of looks like it could be correct, but you want to pick the best out of everything, okay? So on this one, the question is asking for sponsored. Okay, so sponsored real estate licensees. So the agents who are under a sponsoring broker. And it's saying who can they represent, right? So the answer to this one is not A, because you're not directly employed by the owner. If you remember in your coursework, the brokerage agreement is between the seller or buyer and the sponsoring broker. So they are the ones that are employed by the client, and then the sponsoring broker assigns you to work with them. All right. So you can't just work for anyone who employs you. You only work for your sponsoring broker. So, because of what I just said, the answer is C as in Charlie. Correct. All right. C as in Charlie. All right. Because you can only work under the person that your sponsoring broker that's hired you. All right. And remember, they're the only ones that can pay you as well. Okay. They're the only ones that can pay you as well. Okay. All right. Next question. The purpose of the recovery fund. All right. to protect the public from dishonest real estate licensees, to provide a pool from which to collect unpaid commissions, to allow an award to be given to a member of the public who has been economically injured by a licensee, to pull monies from the broker's accounts. Okay, so the recovery fund was one of the four funds we talked about. Okay, one of the terms there, recovery, so you're getting something back, right? Again, think about, why do we have laws? To protect the general public, okay? So because of that, it's not B and it's not D. Okay, pull monies from brokers and escrow accounts, there's nothing like that, right? Pull from which unpaid, to collect unpaid commissions, not really, okay? And then so out of A and C, right, the best answer of the two, right, the better answer of the two would then be C as in Charlie, all right? And the key word there is economically. So they lost money and we're trying to help them recover that money. Okay. A is close because it's to protect the public from dishonest agents, right? But how and why? That's where C comes in. All right. So kind of like why I go over some of this is so that when you're doing other questions, you kind of process it that way to help you get the answer. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes for you. All right. I've been doing this for a while, so it kind of comes natural to me, but yours just takes practice and practice. All right, I think I have two more questions. All right. The real estate license law of 2000 makes it possible for a candidate to, all right, so this one, please read it carefully because it can be confusing. Act as both an independent contractor and employee of the sponsoring broker, obtain a broker license without prior experience as a real estate licensee, complete 75 hours of coursework as the credential for taking the broker test, and then D, renew his or her license every 4 years. All right, so remember, choosing the best answer. We just talked about when we renew our licenses, right? And how often do we renew the licenses? It's not 4 years, so it's not D. C says complete 75 hours of coursework as credentials to take the exam. Is that true or false? So consider that, okay? It's true-ish, right? So let's just keep that as a possibility. Obtain a broker license without having prior experience. Yeah, you can, but there are more steps to it. Okay. And then A, act as both independent and employee of the sponsoring broker. Kind of. Usually you're one and not the other. Because remember, okay, remember, and you can go back and check this in your book too. In the chapter where you talked about independent contractors, there were three criteria. One was that you're licensed. Two is that the contract says that you will not be treated as an employee, but as an independent contractor. And then the third one was majority of your commissions are coming from sales. So commission, sorry, majority of your payments or your salary or your income is from commissions and not hours worked. All right. So you kind of have to choose one or the other. Okay. So A is out. B is close, but not really. So the answer really is C. All right. So remember, we're thinking best answer in this scenario. Okay. Does that make sense, or does anyone have any questions? All right. Final question. Which of the following is an acceptable name for a real estate team? Which of the following is an acceptable name for a real estate team? So then we have Jane Doe Team, Jane Doe Property Group, Jane Doe Realty Team, or Jane Doe Associates. All right. So we just talked about the terms that you cannot use. Yeah. All right. So we just talked about the terms you can't use in your um, team name. So yes. All right. Jane Doe Team would be good. B would be right if we didn't have property there as well. So if it was just Jane Doe Group, then it would be fine. But because we have property and then group, then it's not allowed. Okay. All right. So with that, we've come to the end. Like I said, next week we'll talk more about the licensing law and some other things that you need to know from for the exam. Let me know in the comments if you have additional questions, or if, as you were watching this later and looking at some of the questions you had, like something wasn't clear. Please let me know in the comments. I'll be glad to help. Again, please like this video just to help me grow this channel and reach more people who are trying to get their real estate license. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. And I have more videos on different other topics that will kind of help you as you prepare for the exam. Now, one of the things I like to say is, as much as you can, okay, as much as you can, try to incorporate different methods of learning. So you may not sit there and watch like a video of mine, but you can just have it playing in the background while you're doing other things. And your brain will be picking up at least a little bit, right? Instead of waiting till you have like all this time to sit down and really, really study. So try to use like different pockets in your day and just listen to something. Maybe if you commute on the bus or train, do like flashcards and you're just like going over them as you're going along. Just have like little things available to you that you could just like grab and quickly study as you have like different times in your day. One of the things I did when I was preparing, honestly, I was working and I would take my book with me, and any free time I had, I would just grab it and just like go over things and go over things and just a little bit at a time, just because that was what I had to work with. I even had it was quite interesting. I was working then as a nurse, and I was doing like in-home care, and someone was like, one of the times I was studying, because they watch you. You don't know, they watch you. All right. So someone was like, "Oh no, let's take the patient, because it was a baby. Let's take the patient so you can study." I was like, "Oh wow, I didn't know they had been watching me." But I only studied when like all my work was done and the baby was sleeping, and I would just do it a little bit instead of like playing on my phone, because when you're playing on your phone, it looks bad on you. So I took my book with me and I just like, but my work was done, right? Like they couldn't fault my work. So I'm not saying neglect your work, but like there was some downtime and I just did as much studying as I could. Even when they gave me time to study, I still would like, in time increments, I'll go and check in on everything, make sure everything is okay, still take care of the patients and all of that, just so that I don't neglect my work and no one can say I didn't do my work well, right? So as much as you can, please incorporate studying into your day-to-day life. And why I keep saying as much as you can, we all have different schedules. So don't worry about how much this person is studying. Just focus on how you can study and go from that perspective. Because when you do your best, you'll be fine. But if you don't do your best, then you're never going to know if you could have passed if you did your best. All right. So, barring any questions, all right, we've come to the end of today's lesson. Hope this was beneficial to you. And like I said, next week I will finish up with more Illinois licensing law portion. And I wish you great success as you study for your exam, and enjoy the rest of your week.